So hi there all. I've come today with a new video to show you my updated bounce build, which previously the video I posted on my channel was more of a beginner one, but now I've got a few more perks and done a few more tweaks, and yes, the build is a lot better than what it was when I first shown you. So now we're going to run through a pro dungeon, and I'm just going to show you what sort of DPS you can do with this. And hopefully I won't be too slow, because I remember one guy in the previous video was complaining I was too slow. So hopefully this is a faster run than the previous one. So we're still doing good weak spot damage against level 60 mobs. So you want to try and get used to third person aiming than rather than first person, as it's just a lot quicker. So as you can see, we've got the boss here, or mini boss I say. Took about 4 hits to kill, but then what you'll notice that the bounce killed all the other enemies, so we didn't need to waste any more bullets. So we just run through here, through the ventilation unit, trying to find the ladder. Now, what I will say is one of the perks we managed to get, which has really increased the weak spot damages in the build, is a perk called Unstoppable. It took me ages to try and get it. I only managed to get it from a drop from the LEA labs on like my third run. So seeing mobs again. Try to get that. Now, what I will say is we don't have a weak spot rolled on every perk we're using at the moment. So if you were to get that, in an ideal world, you would be one-tapping these mobs. I don't use a sniper for this because I can't target the weak spot, so hence why I've brought the shrapnel rifle out. I'm not doing the secret area. I'm just gonna go to the boss. As you can see, we just did a big weak spot damage of 37k, and we're making light work of all these mobs. We're just targeting the boss, and we're letting bounce do the work for us. So you can just see we've just taken out 3 level 60 mobs, just 1 bullet, which is what makes this build so fun to use. So now we obviously got to take the shield down with the minigun before we can kill it. And I drop it and release the pyro dino. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend running this deviant with the build. I've only bought this deviant out just for the purposes of this boss, just so that he can actually focus it and it doesn't increase my my damage, so you don't get really like inflated numbers, because that one improves stats damage for your burn builds, which is a very difficult one to get. So as you can see, easily cleared it in a good time. Now, if you want a deviant to use, I would recommend using the wolf from the Shadowhound boss. So as you can see, nearly 80k damage on that run. You just see in the video that how easy it was to run a pro dungeon by yourself like that. So moving on to the build, we've got a few improvements. We managed to improve our weak spot damage, which is at 193%. You can get this more with the correct attributes, depending on what you've rolled on your actual perks. So you could easily get that to 210 plus with food buffs. And obviously we're still using the same sniper, which has an 80% chance to trigger bounce when hitting a weak spot. When bounce hits a weak spot, there is a 35% chance for it to continue to ricochet. If bounce does not defeat an enemy or there is no target, the next 1 bullet weapon damage stacks up to 5. So it just keeps on stacking up the damage, which is very nice. We've also stuck with targeted bounce precision. We've got a good roll for the weak spot, the highest we can get. I'm just going to go through the other options to show you. See, this one's a good one to have. Potentially, you can swap that out with bounce precision. but since we're looking for weak spots, we stick with the one we've got at the moment. That one's not very good for weak spot builds. Maybe if you wanted to turn the build into a crit build, it could work, but I wouldn't recommend it because ideally with a sniper, you're looking for weak spot, especially with bounce as well. Accessories, just going to go through the accessories quickly. Show you not much has really changed. Still using the same accessories from the previous build. Right, now we're moving on to the gear and the perks. So we're running the agent set because we want the 10% weak spot damage. On the helmet, we have Precision Strike. Hitting a weak spot grants weak spot damage plus 12% for 3 seconds. So you can stack it up to 3 times, so 36%. Very good. Now we've got Break Bounce, which is a bit of a tongue twister. So when a bullet hits an enemy with HP above 50%, the bullet's ultimate damage plus 50%. So we managed to roll bounce damage on there, so we get an increase on the stat. I've changed my chest, so I'm running more weak spot damage boost, so weak spot 15% plus weak spot damage 5.4 as well. So that is a very high roll for what we've got. I've also changed it so now that we have unstoppable talent, so weak spot damage plus 20% when a bullet hits the target more than 20 meters away. For every additional 1 meter away from the target, weak spot damage plus 1% up to 20%. So ideally we want weak spot on that roll, but unfortunately we never managed to get it. Ideally you want weak spot with it, but since we never managed to get it, it's going to be a really tough perk to get because I only managed to get this from a drop from the LEE Labs. So moving on, we go to the gloves. Now I've gone with the weak spot damage boost precision, 25% plus 5.4% on the attribute, which is a nice roll. Now moving on to the actual boots. I've gone for covered advanced talents as a 20% melee weapon and damage status boost for 30 seconds while standing still is a bit of a no-brainer. Right, moving on to my armor effects. I'm still running the Bastille gloves as this is the only armor piece I've got, and by crouching I get a 40% damage boost with having 3 sets. I've kept the hot dog shorts for the bounce trigger count, or bounce target count, sorry, +1. Moving on to the Cradle on what I've got equipped. So I've got, as you can see, automatic weapon enhancement, long range enhancement, agility just in case I need to roll and get a bit of a damage reduction, rapid first aid so when I'm in a bit of a tight spot I can heal myself, tactical combo, weapon damage after changing weapons, so you could combo it with the build and then constantly switch your weapons to get the damage boost. Deadly combo because it boosts our bounce by 25%. Bullet hunt, but we don't really use it with this build. Bounty hunter, so when you mark targets after you defeated them, get a 25% damage boost to weak spots. So if you manage to mark targets in this build, it's very beneficial for your overall DPS. Because in the clip I never. So what we do is go to the wish machine. I'm going to show you what I recommend getting for an armor set rather than the Bastille set. So you want to go for the Renegade set really. So you get that weak spot damage. So you ideally want 4 pieces. So hitting the same enemy consecutively grants 1 stack of Archer's Focus, increasing weak spot damage by 4% up to 10 stacks. So that's like 40%. So it is a very worthwhile set to invest in if you've got the Starcrom. Cost you 9k for the 3 pieces or 12k for obviously the 4 pieces. Now going on to the unique, what I would recommend is Prickly Dance Plant. But I would recommend trying this one because it bounces 100% chance to bounce again, so it deals 100% damage. So you would constantly chain those bounces together. So it's either that or the hot dog shorts for me personally. Alright, moving on. Now I'll show you where you can get the food to increase the weak spot damage build. So the food you want is assorted canned fruit. The ingredients are deviated beet, 1, coconut, 1, aluminium, 1. And it does increase weak spot damage by 25% when sanity is above 80%. So if your sanity is above 80%, you'll be fine. And if it's not, you can just constantly take those blue pills or the blue gummies, and this will stack your sanity back up to 80%. As you can see where I'm hovering my cursor and marked it on the map, that is the location of where you'll find the recipe. Moving on from that, I'm going to be discussing what the weaknesses are with the build. So the biggest weakness is obviously if an enemy doesn't have a weak spot, which you will come across in some instances. Bosses, in particular bosses without a weak spot, may be a bit of a struggle, so you may find that when you're encountering bosses, and if they do not have a weak spot, then you're kind of screwed in that department. Well, like I said, you just have to be cautious when you encounter a boss without a weak spot, so it may be better to use an offhand weapon. The next sort of weakness is that it has a slow fire rate because obviously it's a sniper rifle, and if you can't deal with the fire rate, then I believe this build is probably not the best for you. Because like I say, it's not bad, but it's not good either. Now the Starcrom investment in the build isn't too bad. Obviously, the rifle's 8k, and then if you want all of the Renegade pieces, that's 12k, so it's 20k in total. So it's not the worst, because obviously you can keep the hot dog shorts on, and your DPS will still be fine. The other uniques are more of a luxury, to be honest with you. And just to reiterate again, you will struggle if you encounter bosses without a weak spot. So it may be wise to bring an offhand weapon like the shrapnel rifle or any other weapon of your choosing, just so that it's not like too much of a slow process. Because as you can see in the clips, weak spot damage, no problem, but maybe a slight hurdle when you face a boss with no weak spot. So if you're running the LEA dungeon, the sirens don't have a weak spot; they only have a shield, so it will be a bit slower to clear that. But the other bosses and everything are fine with the room because they've all got weak spots, so you should get decent damage off on the final boss, and of course all the mobs, because there are a hell of a lot of mobs in that final part of the dungeon. So you shouldn't struggle with that. Just one final point I want to go over is making sure that you are getting as much weak spot damage as you can on your perks, because that's going to be the key factor for your damage. If you can roll weak spot and damage, great, but if you can't and you can only choose one of them, try and at least obviously get the one. I would just like to close out this video thanking for everyone who's viewed my videos recently. I am slowly trying to get better with my format of my videos and making sure that I cover the most content within these videos, and I try not to forget anything, but only human at the end of the day. So if I do forget anything, please comment down below and let me know, and I'll make sure that I will cover it in the next video. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's been helpful. This is a really fun build to use, and I hope you will be able to give it a try if you're obviously running bounce builds or have watched my previous video on them. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you could like and subscribe, that would be great. But if not, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Did you see
Why
it?
can I see their truck bouncing around in the river?
Because